Hello Internet! Gino, aka That Pinguino, here again with another deep look. This time I'm going to be taking a look at Final Fantasy VIII, and I'm going to be doing something a little different for my next few videos. I'm going to be prepping for a speedrun that I'm doing on GiantBomb.com. So the Giant Bomb Community Endurance Run is coming up, and I'm going to be participating in that, and my main thing that I'm doing is a speedrun of FF8. So that Community Endurance Run is running to support Pencils of Promise. It's a non-profit organization that builds schools in underdeveloped nations. It trains teachers for those schools. It helps the children who are attending those schools. It's a really good charity. You should look into it, donate if you can, and help the Community Endurance Run if you can. And so, to prepare, I figured I would make a couple of videos showing some of the techniques and some of the strategies that I'm going to employ during the endurance run and during the speed run. So, first things first, for the speed run, I'm going to want to bring the battle speed, battle message, and field message all the way up. That is going to save me a ton of time when it comes to actually dealing with enemies. Another thing that I'm going to want to do is have Quetzalcoatl learning Thunder Magic Refine and Shiva learning Ice Magic Refine. Those two abilities are some of the most important when it comes to getting through this game quickly. You want access to those abilities because they're going to let you turn the items that you win in battle into spells, which you can then use for junctioning. And it just so happens that there are some very, very useful enemies right here on this beach that actually supply me with an item that is great for Ice Magic Refine. So I'm going to go ahead and get on the beach over here, and I'm going to run into some little land shark, land piranha creatures. I think they're called Fascillation Fs. They have a very weird name. I'm just going to call them land piranha because that's what they are. As you kill them, they actually are a really great enemy to grind very early on in the game. They have not a ton of health I guess relative to some of the early enemies they have a bit of health, but they are the only enemies this early on in the game that give you 3 AP each. Most enemies give you 1, some give you 2, but 3 is very, very high, especially for an early enemy. And they always come in groups of 2. So as long as you're on the beach, they are the only thing you run into. You always run into 2 of them, and each of them gives you 3 AP, so it's 6 AP a fight. Now most abilities, like the Refine abilities, cost 30 AP. So 5 fights, I've already got both Refine abilities. The next abilities you might want, Card, Strength Magic Refine, are 60 and 50 AP each, which again is just a few, 7, 8 fights for those abilities, which is not egregious, considering that the alternative is killing enemies that give you 1 AP a pop, and anywhere from 1 to 3 of those enemies could show up, so killing 2 of these is actually cutting the number of fights you have to deal with kind of in half. So I'm going to be grinding these until I have those particular abilities because, as I mentioned, the item refining is very, very useful for junctioning. And after those, I'm going to want to start working towards Strength Junction for Shiva and Card for Quetzalcoatl. Strength Junction is going to allow me to junction, as the name implies, magic to my strength stat. In this case, it's going to let Squall junction 100 water spells to his strength stat, which is going to allow him to one-shot kill most enemies this early on in the game. It's going to make killing Ifrit very, very easy. And it's going to allow me to not use summons for the most part. GFs can take, 30 seconds, 40 seconds per animation, and that time adds up if you're using them over and over and over again, especially in boss fights, where you could use it, 4 or 5 times a fight per character, and that really adds up. So I'm going to want to avoid incurring the penalty of summoning and using magic, other than these very, very early fights, because Quetzalcoatl, because it's a Thunder GF, does extra damage to these little land sharks, because they are water elements, so they are weak against Thunder, and so he one-shots them. He just kills them dead. So it is totally worth it here, because it saves me a bunch of auto attacks, and it also reduces the amount of damage that each of my characters will take during these fights, which helps save me healing items. So outside of this very early grinding situation, I'm probably not going to use many GFs or magic. I'm going to stick mostly to physical attacks, and strength junction is what lets me do that. And in terms of card, I'm going to want to get card for Quetzalcoatl, because after card is learned, you can start learning card mod, which allows you to refine cards into items. I talk about that a little bit in some of my Final Fantasy VIII videos that I put up. And ordinarily, if I was playing this game for non-speedrun purposes, I would get card mod, and then I would just play the card game a whole lot, get a huge grip of cards, turn them into some of the best items in the game, and I would make Squall and Quistis super overpowered, and then I'd never have to worry about the game ever again. Unfortunately, the card game takes quite a bit of time to get the cards you actually want, for the most part. Like the Quistis card, which is the one I would definitely target if I was going to play the card game. That card might not show up for, 10, 15 games, and if that happens, if the absolute worst case happens, I'm basically spending an hour playing a card game without a strong payoff. Now, I'm going to get a whole bunch of other items that would definitely help, but if you don't get 100 of a spell or 80 of a spell, the payoff isn't that much better than just, playing naturally and getting the items that would come to you naturally. So I'm going to try to avoid the card game for the most part. However, card mod is going to allow me to refine items from cards that I get just from regular boss fights. Like Ifrit, when you beat him, will always give you his card. That gives me access to elemental attack items that allow me to give characters the ability to add elements to their attacks, to junction spells to their elemental damage. That's not one I'm going to use a whole lot, but things like the brothers, because I'm going to be trying to get every single GF, and I'm going to be trying to kill Ultima and Omega Weapon. So every single one of those GF cards that I come into contact with refines into a ton of really good items, for the most part. And I'm going to want to be able to refine them as soon as I can. And Quetzalcoatl doesn't have a lot of other great abilities beyond card mod, so I'm going to want to get that one as soon as possible. And so I'm going to be killing fish for the beginning of this speed run until I have both the item refine abilities and strength junction. After that, I'm going to move on, kill Ifrit. I'm probably not going to do any sort of grinding until I've killed a few more bosses, gotten Diablos. I don't want to level my characters too high and make the fights actually difficult. So it's just a little bit of fish murder, followed by getting the abilities that I need, followed by speed running as fast as I can. So hope that gives you a little bit of a hint of how to approach this game. I'm going to keep churning out some of these videos as I'm practicing for the speed run. It's not going to be every day, it's not going to be every single time I do a practice session. But if there's something that I think is especially noteworthy to point out, I'll make a video, tell you a little bit about it, and hope you enjoy it. So tune in for more of my Going the Distance series of Final Fantasy VIII videos, and tune in for the Giant Bomb Community Endurance Run. Get some money for Pencils of Promise. And I hope you tune in for the Endurance Run and for the videos. So, till next time, peace!